Morning. Thank you very much for your time. So this is the third marketing session that we've done in this series. So we had the beginner, intermediate, and now we're on to the advanced one. So today you're joined by myself. So I'm Sabrina Gosney. I'm the Microsoft Business Manager here at TD SYNNEX. And then I'm also joined by Nathan Selby, who is Active Profile, which are a marketing agency that we work really closely with on a lot of our marketing as a service side. So first of all, I'm just going to take you through the Cloud Practice Builder that we've been on, and don't worry, I won't take very long on this. So you or your teams have gone through one of these tracks, and what we've tried to create is obviously touching points on all of the different roles that obviously make up this practice that you would then go to market with. So we had leadership sessions first, where we were joined by Microsoft to really position what the partner opportunity was, and why obviously you'd be looking to wrap around managed services around your CSP. We then had sales sessions, and we had a trainer that took your sales guys through how to position these different products, what the benefits and features are, and really the kind of questions to be asking. We then had the technical side, so we were helping your techie guys really understand, again, how to kind of support your partners with these technologies. And then there was different tools that they can use, such as M365 Lighthouse and Azure Lighthouse, to try and make that experience better both for you and the end user. And then obviously we're on to the marketing session. So how do you take everything and then obviously take that out to market? So you will get access to videos of all of these that we've recorded, and then we will be booking in a session that brings everybody together from your partner to really discuss what you've learned, what is missing, and how we kind of move forward with this. So with that, I will hand over to Nathan.
Thanks, Sabs. So like we have with the last two sessions, but with the last one rather, we'll start with we'll just recap what we covered over both two sessions for those of you who are either watching this online or are with us and haven't attended the other two. Then we're going to go into the bulk of this presentation, which is around integrated go-to-marketing strategies, and we've got an example here, and we'll take you through the process that we use as an agency with clients that we're working with. And then we're going to focus on how we build a brand and create demand at the end. Just a presentation we've been doing quite a lot of. If you have watched any of the other two recordings or you've attended either of those sessions, it's exactly the same content, so you can feel free to drop off at that point. If you have any questions as we go through, feel free to ask. Do our best to answer them. But similarly, at the very end of this slide deck, like the other two sessions, there's some contact information for Sabs, myself, and the CSP team. You can feel free to reach out to either of us with any of those questions. We also offered in the previous two sessions, we provided a workbook. So if you want us to validate or give you feedback on value proposition, on any persona work you've done, on any content that you've created, we're happy to provide some of that advisory as part of taking part in this stream of work. So please do use us if you think it'd be beneficial. So we're just going to start with a recap of the last two sessions. So session one was around creating a value proposition that cuts through the noise and how we do persona work, and then just a very, very basic foundations for go-to-market. So we spoke about how there's globally over 64,000 Microsoft partners, and actually it's really important that our value proposition is distinctive and it is unique, and we want to make sure that we did stand out amongst the crowd, amongst those 64,000 other partners. How do we make sure that we are the ones that end user businesses come to when they need service, support, anything like that? So we covered these kind of 7 or 8 bullet points just in terms of how we create that value proposition. We obviously in slides in presentation 1, which was last Monday, we covered a lot of this in a lot more detail. So each of the slides has 2 or 3 bits around what makes us distinctive, what is our value add, and how do we identify that? So what makes us unique? How do we really bring to life what we're saying we do? What are our priority themes? Cybersecurity, productivity, smart meetings, whatever that is. Who is it we're targeting? Which then feeds into the personas. How do we want them to feel? Why is our business needed now and not in 2 years, 3 years? We need to bring a sense of urgency with our value proposition. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve the growth that we want to do. And then what data or proof points do we have based on everything we've said in the 6 or 7 bullets above? What evidence do we have to back up any of those themes, any of those distinctive elements? We spoke about how important it is to position ourselves to be able to solve problems and to be able to position our business as the best option in the market amongst those 64,000 other partners globally. How do we make sure that we are the one that when someone types into a search engine or asks for a referral or proactively seeks for a new provider, that we're in that mix? So we spoke about the need to think about the outcome of the outcome. So we covered this over probably about 3 or 4 slides around customers don't actually care about product. They don't care about its speed, its specification, or its features. Not really. What they care about is by accessing this product, solution, service, and its specifications and its features, what then becomes possible. So if I buy X number of Microsoft 365 licenses today, I don't care that I'm buying those licenses. They are the means to the end. What I care about is my team become more productive, they become more efficient, we can collaborate better, we're a lot more secure, we can do lots more with bring your own device. They become what they care about, what becomes possible by having those licenses. And I think the more we as Microsoft partners can understand what becomes achievable at each stage, the more value we can add. If you think about that value add, so by buying 365 licenses, business becomes more productive. What is the result of become more productive? It could be greater sales, growth. It could be, business founders can exit. What is the thing that is really motivating them to do it? That's where we can add the most value. If we can make that happen and make that possible, we are then going to have a much greater conversation and probably a better relationship as well. We then, in section 1, focused on persona profiles. So what is a persona and why is it important? Obviously, persona profiles are entirely fictional, based on real life scenarios, based on real life demographics and the profiles that we can build up. They are ultimately a way to represent different types of users that might use our website or use our services. They come in all shapes and sizes. They can be different seniorities. They can be different company sizes. They can have different roles and responsibilities. And you might have two different personas who do the same thing with you, depending on the company size. It could be an IT manager in a much smaller business. It could be a CTO in a much greater business. We just need to understand what our personas are and what gets them out of bed in the morning, in essence. So we need to think about the following. Who are they? So job title, function, sector, if you are sector specific. And a lot of partners we've worked with in the past are more sector agnostic. Who are they? What are they trying to achieve professionally and personally? The more we can understand about these pockets of people, the more we can then understand how to engage them, what they're interested in, and then just build that relationship and start to sell those services off the back of that understanding. How do we help them achieve their goals? What are their challenges, and therefore what are their biggest opportunities? Again, by understanding that, we can then sell the outcome of the outcome to these people. It's important to understand what they like to work with. So are they really busy? Do they just want information quickly? Do they want to have a call to talk it through? We then understand when we bring another person in who meets this persona profile, how we then need to deal and interact with them. We need to understand what they look for from a partner and what they hate, just so we can tailor our service for that. If they hate being let down, we know they need to ultimately do what we're saying we're going to do. So if we say, I'll send you a proposal by Friday, we need to send that proposal by Friday. If they want X, we just need to give them X. By building this persona profile up, it makes selling to these people much easier. Then we covered in the last session, which was last Tuesday at the same time, we covered how to layer up campaign activities. So take very, very basic campaign plans. And the example we showed was you've got like a website landing page, or you might have just your website, how we can use email to support that, how we can use organic social to support that as 3 basic channels. I think that's probably what a lot of partners do. You might do some events and exhibitions around that. You might do some networking, you might get some referrals. How do we take that very, very foundational level and then build upon that? So there's just a couple of examples here in terms of what those tactics might be. So you might look at using automation. That could be somebody downloads a report or an ebook off your website. They then get a series of 2, 3, 4 communications off the back of that, which just aims to save the information that you think is relevant to them. And then we can then look at that data and make optimizations. We might do some retargeting, so people who visited your website or social channels, just to bring them back and save them additional bits of information, just so we can understand the best way to get in front of them and best way to convert them. We can look at behavioral analysis, so things like Hotjar, Mouseflow, Microsoft Clarity, where and how people interact with our website, so that we can learn what it is they're interested in, whether we've got it, whether we haven't, and then we can tailor our offering and tailor our proactive marketing efforts to kind of fit those missing gaps. We can do some user journey mapping, so understanding where people are coming to our website, so we can use the similar platforms as we just mentioned above, seeing they come onto the home page, they then go to this page, they then go to that page. Is that the journey we want them to follow? If it's not, there's some things we need to do to our website just to improve that process. Likewise, if we are promoting X on social media and someone then gets linked to a page and the page is completely different, we're given a very inconsistent user journey there. We need to make sure that that is consistent from end to end, and that might mean creating additional landing pages, creating slightly different tweaked versions of sector pages or case studies. And that could be anything from just purely titles and subject headers. It could be a case of replicating some of the copy, or it could just simply be some of the imagery. We found quite a lot with activities we've done where the use of sector-related imagery is a difference between a conversion and not a conversion. Sometimes something that's a bit more generic just doesn't have the impact that we want it to have. We covered SEO as well and the opportunity for partners there. And then we covered content with intent, which we'll just recap for a couple of seconds here. So we spoke about the need to create content that does one of these 4 things. So that is, does it entertain, does it inspire, does it educate, or does it convince? But actually, we're not here to entertain, so we want to be doing one of the other 3 things. We want to be inspiring, educating, or convincing. That, and only then, we'll be able to have the scalable efforts that we want. So does our content speak directly to challenges or pain points within our persona profiles? If it does, great. We should hopefully start to get some traction. If it doesn't, we'll know it doesn't, because we'll get very high bounce rates, we'll get very low average time on website pages, we'll get very low interaction on social media, and ultimately we're not going to get any conversions, because what we think are the challenges and pain points, or what we think the message is, just doesn't relate to our audience. If that's the case, we need to go back to our persona profiles, update them if they're wrong, or make sure that our message, if we're happy with the persona profiles are right, make sure that our message relates to them. Because so often we do the persona where, say it's great, then we just go off on a different path over here, and the two are just not aligned. That persona profile needs to be constantly updated when we get new insights, and then the messaging should follow that as well. We need to think about what we're aiming to do. So we're creating content, but actually, what are our objectives? Are our objectives to educate? At which point we can just be very pain point driven. Is it a content piece further down the funnel, which we'll come on to shortly in the campaign design? If it is further down the funnel, it can be more case study focused. It can be a bit more salesy. It's important that we hit people with the right content with intent based on where they are in their journey. What expertise and credibility do we have to back up what we're saying? Literally, where and physically, where will the content exist? Is it social copy? Is it email copy? Is it web? Is it short form, long form, that sort of stuff? And how can we just be clever with the content we do create and slice down? So we might create, or we might work with an agency or a marketing consultant or whoever to create a ebook or a report that might be 2,000-3,000 words. How can we make sure that we get the most out of that piece of work, because it's time consuming and resource consuming? So how can we take that ebook or report, make that into different blogs? And that could be a case of taking some of the chapters or some of the sections from a hero piece of content, and then thinking, right, okay, how does that then become a blog specifically? How does that specific blog then become an email? How does that email then and the blog, how do they become social tiles? How does that become organic posts? Is there a thought leadership opportunity? There's loads we can do just by thinking about what it is we're creating at the point of creating it. And then some very, very quick top tips in terms of creating content with intent. How to and list articles perform really well, specifically from kind of like a search engine point of view. So if you're looking to move up from an SEO point of view and get onto kind of page 1 of Google or Microsoft Bing, these are the sort of articles that you should be creating. So there's some examples there: how to migrate to the cloud, the top 10 ways to improve cybersecurity, just 2 content examples. Longer form content performs much better. 1,300 words-ish is a good word count. If we are doing much longer pieces of content, let's just make sure that the user journey and user experience is user-friendly at the end of the day. So we're not just typing 1,300 words with massive paragraphs, no bullets, no images. Let's just break it up. Let's have clear section headers so that people can find the information that they want really quickly and really easily. We should link best performing pages to those pages that are not performing well. So if we're getting 90% of our organic search traffic onto the homepage, let's use that homepage to link to a brand new service that we've just created that maybe no one's necessarily finding organically at the moment. Let's just use that really good piece of content to link to that. The more opportunities we have to link, the better that content's going to perform. So if you can do things like pop up CTAs, if you're on like the HubSpot, that's great as well. If not, it might be that you put it into the navigation, into the footer. You might do a section on the homepage to link to it. And then the last section in the recap was around short burst experiments, and we covered just some examples of what that might be. So that could be A/B testing landing pages or A/B testing emails, and we covered experiments because it gives us a really low cost, low risk opportunity to really fine tune what it is we're doing. So if we've created a really good landing page, or we think it is, but it's not converting, do we change just little tiny things like the image at the top? Do we make it more sector specific? Do we make one page into 2 pages and one is retail focused and one is construction focused, for example? We can test audience demographics. So again, with that same landing page or with social tiles, do we do some targeted activity focused on IT managers or sales managers and test the 2 off against each other? All of these experiments ultimately will help us to refine and constantly refine our persona profiles. We can test product market fit. Actually, solution X, is it relevant for the retail audience, or is it more better fitted to hospitality or professional services? We can test content format. So like I said earlier, being able to slice down enables us to understand which audience and which content formats go hand in hand. You might find that short emails are better for C-suite, but actually ebooks, reports are much better for kind of middle managers, CIT managers, and that sort of audience. We can test call to actions. So do we find a greater uplift when we call something a roundtable rather than an online meeting or a webinar? Just purely the way we call those call to actions and the way we refer to them can really be the difference between a good engagement and bad engagement, a good number of leads and a bad number of leads. We can test content type, so data-led content, and we could do a very small scale account-based marketing activity as well. And we've done a couple of those fairly recently with a couple of partners that we've worked with, where we found that we've got net new contacts off the back of it. We've been able to re-engage some contacts that actually have gone quiet on us, and we've been trying to convert them for a while. They're now more engaged with us. They're coming to our event. We then hope that the sales process will resume off the back of that. So just testing different formats, different call to actions is so key. We recommend probably about 2 to 4 weeks is a good amount of time. We don't need to spend ages on it. We don't need to do massive experiments. It can be really, really simple things like use of color, use of call to action, etc. Now we're going to go into the bulk of today's session. We are here to talk about how we create an integrated marketing strategy and how we use that to go to market. So learning on what we've already covered in the last 2 sessions, we've laid the foundations, we've started to do some really low level activity. We're starting to build our brand presence. We've got a bit more of a motivation to push marketing forward. We've then started to layer it up, but actually maybe things aren't necessarily joined up. We're not thinking strategically. We're going to cover in this session here how to bring that all together and the reasons why we need to do it. So a full funnel integrated marketing strategy is really important because no two buyers are the same, or very rarely anyway. People have different motives, different challenges. They need to be spoken to in a way that really resonates with them. And those persona profiles, as I keep banging on about, are so important. If they're accurate, we're going to really connect with those audiences, and we're going to get the leads and the inquiries that we're looking for. People are at different stages of the buying journey. They could be purely oblivious to the fact that they've got an issue, or oblivious to the fact that there's something that could resolve it. So they could just be really passive in activity. They could be on LinkedIn, for example, just scrolling through the feed. They see something about a challenge or a pain point. They read it, and then actually they then start to think, well, actually that relates to me. We've got that challenge. Okay, there's an issue here that we need to resolve. They then naturally start to move into the consideration phase. So from awareness, which is top of the funnel, into consideration, then into decision. And ultimately, an integrated marketing strategy is one that delivers the same unified message across all channels, provides consistency. So wherever a customer interacts with us, they're getting a really consistent message, they're getting a really consistent experience without being integrated. If we start having a landing page over here which says one thing, an email over here which has been sent on a one-to-one basis by someone else, and then we've got some organic social tiles and some social posts that are all saying really different things, we really risk just coming across as really disconnected and really disjointed. Ultimately, a full funnel approach will bring together brand and demand, which we'll come on to at the back end of this session, where I'll go through a couple of slides that we've been delivering recently. The greatest opportunity exists in that space there. So think about how we communicate with people. How likely would you be to buy a car from a complete stranger, someone that you don't know about? Probably not very likely, to be honest. And I think if you're at that awareness stage, it's so important that we start to build trust and credibility in your minds before you'll even come and consider us, especially if you have got an existing partner who you may not be happy with as an end user, but you know they've got the credibility and the referenceability. You've got an element of trust there for the fact that you're with them. If you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I've outgrown them, or maybe the service they've gotten really busy, and the service that we used to get isn't the service we get anymore, and you are starting to consider other options. If you don't trust that other option, they're just not going to be in the mix, and that's where the content from awareness, consideration, and decision will really spring to life. So in the content with intent section, and even within section, the first session that we did last Monday, we spoke about the need for trust and credibility. So through case studies, testimonials, client reviews, client ratings, all those sort of things start to build that trust. So first things first, before we even begin to create an integrated marketing strategy, I mean, we can do it, but it's important that we have a tech stack that supports it. So does our tech stack support multi-channel? So can we easily run activities across different channels that is reportable, or you can report upon? Can we track everything in a really sophisticated and easy to understand way? Can we do any automation? Can we do retargeting? And how easy is that reporting at the end of the process as well? There's just a couple of examples of the more enterprise level CRM systems here. There are obviously a lot others, but ultimately without a robust CRM, any integrated strategy starts to fall apart because that tracking and reporting is so key. Likewise with marketing, we've got some stats in the brand and demand session at the end. If we can't report on ROI, we start to get business leaders making decisions that maybe they shouldn't be making, purely because us as marketers aren't able to give them the information that they want. So that tracking is really, really key. So what does a full funnel look like? Obviously, we've mentioned loosely awareness, consideration, and decision. And this is an example of what one of those funnels could be. So, like with any funnel, starts wider, starts bigger at the top. As you get through, the amount of people within that process starts to drop off, because ultimately not everyone is ready to move forward. So at the top of the funnel, you've got the awareness stage where people are really passive. They're not proactively looking for anything. They're not looking to buy. They're open to engaging with more hero content purely because there's an interest there. They can relate to the content or the subject matter. So here you have things like research studies and ebooks, organic social posts, a press release would apply here as well. Most blogs and vlogs as well exist at this stage. So blog on the top 10 updates to X, or a blog on the emerging challenges or emerging problems that the retail sector are having when it comes to IT, they would typically sit at the top of the funnel in that awareness stage. So it's not a sales piece of content at all. It's purely there to educate. Then we come down to the middle of the funnel, where people are much more open to considering. So they might actively be researching other solutions or providers as well. And that's probably where you're going to get someone going into a search engine and typing, Microsoft Partner or Smart Meeting Solution. Those are the sort of people that exist at this stage. So they are much more open to engaging with webinars. If you've got a webinar around why you should move to Microsoft 365, that would sit at this stage. Any product videos or demos would sit at this stage as well. So if you're offering Dynamics 365 as a solution, someone being able to sign up to a demo or a webinar or watch some on-demand videos, that would typically sit at this stage as we start to get more into product and less general education. And then once someone has understood that the solution is right for them, they get in the decision stage where you're maybe one of 5 options that they're exploring. So this is where they will say, okay, well, I've identified that, yeah, Microsoft 365 is the right solution for us. Who am I going to buy it from? Who sells it? Where can I find referenceability and credibility? I'm a finance business. Have any of these 5 or 6 people that we're looking at, how many of them have finance experience? I think I'm in a really complex industry. I need someone who gets that. If I haven't then got access to blogs and references and case studies in relation to that, you're potentially at risk of falling out of that process. So at this stage, I'm looking for testimonials, case studies, solutions brief battle cards, and I may also ask for another product demo as well at this stage. So what does that look like from a real life point of view? So if you would think about what you do in your activity or what you may want to do in the future, maybe you're thinking, 2023 is fast approaching around the corner. We need to get our marketing game on. What is it we need to do? Obviously, the disclaimer at the bottom, we don't need to do everything on day one. We can constantly be layering up like we've covered in session 2. We don't need to do it all at once. As long as we're doing it in a strategic way and we're thinking about, okay, what content do we have at each stages of the funnel, we can start to do things. You might do a blog monthly, you might do a piece of content once a quarter, once every 6 months. As long as it's relevant and as long as it comes back to the challenges and pain points of our personas, that's fine. I wouldn't worry about, oh my God, there's loads of things on this screen here, or there's loads of things on the previous slides. We couldn't possibly do that. Just do it at your own pace. As long as you can start to tick each of those stages and start to experiment, you'll be absolutely fine. So in terms of website, we might have a service page. If we're focused on a specific solution, we might then have pages for downloadable content, and that could be a Microsoft checklist that they provided to you as a partner. We might have blogs, we might have case studies, we might create infographics or checklists. We might, again, create additional blogs to share from a content point of view. We will probably need some sort of effective tech stack. We'll need to be able to do SEO, PPC, and those other things, just to give you a flavour of what that starts to look like. We do have an example of an integrated marketing strategy at the end of this presentation. So when thinking about what content we're creating, we've mentioned the 3 different stages. We need to think about lead definitions as well before we get there. And you will all have probably your own definitions. You may treat everyone as a sales lead. You may treat people as marketing leads. You may even have a stage before that. And we've got some definitions of what that looks like here. So leads ultimately should be treated at the stage they're at. So if I've just downloaded a blog, why are we asking someone to give them an email address? If we're then following up based on my blog view, what are you expecting to sell me at that point? Because all you know about me is I've read a blog and you've made me give my email. I haven't asked for a demo. I've not searched pricing, anything like that. What conversation are you trying to have? If you try and sell to me when I'm not ready to be sold to, you run the risk of just being excluded from any future consideration or decisions that I'm going to make. So do you ever wonder why people who sign up to your newsletter or download an ebook fail to close? It's probably because they're just not ready to buy or they're not actively looking. So it's important to think about how we define those marketing and sales opportunities. This is just HubSpot's methodology, which we think is quite useful to put in as HubSpot partners. It just ultimately takes someone from the very, very left-hand side, from being a complete stranger to you, through to becoming a customer. Obviously, at the bottom there, we've got the awareness, consideration, and decision stage. Similar to the funnel, we just need to take people through those 4 stages. So we get them to identify an issue or a challenge. We connect with them. We then start to explore if there's an opportunity to work together and if our solution is right for them. Once they become an opportunity, we can then start to advise them on best approach to take, best license type, if it is Microsoft 365, is it a basic, is it a standard, or actually can we get them onto premium? Once we've had that conversation and we've built the trust and credibility, we can then turn them into a customer. So there's 3 different types of leads that we're going to cover on over the next couple of slides. One is purely just a lead. They're not marketing qualified, they're not sales qualified. They've indicated an interest in engaging with your company, but we don't know what that engagement is at this point. So until we start to gather further insights, we can't really associate this person with being marketing or sales. An example of this could be somebody who signs up for your newsletter, somebody who follows your company social profile, somebody who connects with you on LinkedIn individually as well. Then the next level beyond that is a marketing qualified lead. And these are people who have engaged with marketing efforts, but are not quite ready to receive a sales call. So this could be somebody who starts to click links in an email or a series of emails around Microsoft 365, for example, and it could be you've linked to a webinar, then in the next email, you've put around the benefits of going from standard to premium. Then the next one could be around demo. They haven't actually signed up to the demo at this point, so they're not quite sales qualified, but there's a clear interest in the solution. So we just need to continue to contact and communicate with them to find what the hook is and what's going to get them over the line. Then lastly, we've got sales qualified leads, and that's ultimately a prospective customer. I think once they get to this point, we can start to think about associating a value alongside this opportunity, whereas we can't on someone who's just clicked a few links, someone who's joined the newsletter. Somebody who is sales qualified is really where we say, okay, there's an opportunity here. It might be £5,000 project, it might be £100,000, it might be a much greater company size, and actually we can associate over a 10-year period, 1 million, 2 million, if they stay with us. Once we can identify that opportunity, small, short-term, long-term, that's really when they become an SQL or a sales qualified lead. And an example there is somebody who completes an inquiry form, so says, I want to have a conversation about X. They might leave in the comment box, I'm using an existing provider, not happy with the service. Can we have a chat to see if we can work together? That is the sort of sales qualified lead that we as an agency would define. Obviously, the effort and reward of a full funnel approach has pros and cons. It is important to weigh this up when you are thinking about, is now the time for us to go all in? Should we do things on a slower basis? The quicker you can execute a full funnel campaign approach, an integrated marketing approach, the better, because you'll start to gain insights and you can start to then optimize each of those processes. But again, don't break your back, don't overcomplicate things. If you've only got the capacity to do things slower, then do it slower. Just know that any opportunity to move things forward is going to be worth the investment. So the pros of a full funnel approach is that we can engage people in a more strategic way. We can nurture them, which means we can bring all the content that we've created into this journey, start to understand what people are engaging with, then start to trigger automation, start to retarget, or start to serve them different pieces of content based on where they are in that funnel. A full funnel approach that's optimized is known and proven to generate greater results. That's where you can start going after the bigger ticket items, people who you've maybe nurtured over 3, 6, 9 months because you've got the content there to do so. And the pros of it, a lot of the funnel can be automated. Once you've got that initial piece of contact information or that initial interest, we then got details where we can then start to serve information. We can invite them to roundtables, webinars when the time is right. The cons, unfortunately, there are cons. It requires potentially a lot of time upfront to create it, and then to do it properly, to get that optimized full funnel process, we need to regularly review, we need to optimize, and we need to be adding things in as and when required. So that could be completely new content, or it could be updating what we already have. If pricing changes, if Microsoft 365 adds or removes specific tools, we need to update our content to make sure it's accurate as well. And then probably one of the more costly consequences is just the need to invest in a tech stack. It doesn't necessarily need to be thousands and thousands of pounds. It can be things that work together through the likes of like a Zapier to integrate them. There are lots of workarounds to avoid investing in a considerable CRM system. You can do all these things at your own pace as well. In terms of the content we need to create, we think about how long it takes to close a new deal and how we have enough content to last that period really. So if our sales process is on average 8 weeks long or 6 months long, how can we keep someone engaged throughout that process? The beauty of having a really optimized full funnel process is we will be able to reduce that time because we're hitting people with the content they need to push them forward, to convince and to get them to that decision process. So if we've got really generic blog content that isn't relevant to specific pain points, we're probably going to stay in that 6-month cycle. Whereas if we've got information which is really relevant and engaging and convinces them that actually we are right for them, we've got the relevant credentials. So we've got, X Microsoft competencies, we've got X case studies in the specific area that they're interested in, and we've got a competitive pricing model. By serving that information, we can start to get them through much quicker. So what does that look like and how do we pull that together? Over the next 10 or 15 slides or so, we've just got examples of how we do that. So whenever we do a campaign plan for a client, we don't try and overcomplicate it. We try and make it really layman's terms, especially when we work with channel partners, because we know not everybody has obviously the level of marketing experience that we do. So if we break it down into really digestible information, everyone understands it, everyone understands what we're working towards, and there's no complex jargon. So what we start with is what it is we're trying to achieve, and there's just 3 example objectives here. So we might be trying to create awareness around Microsoft 365 for Business from a premium licensing point of view. That's our first objective. And as we go from 1 to 3, we start to get further down the funnel as well. So awareness at the very, very top. We're trying to engage net new opportunities who are worried specifically about business security, and our content is going to be around those themes. And then we want to ultimately create a pipeline of opportunity that can be nurtured through this process to become net new customers. So who is it we're talking to? We've done our persona work up front, and we've identified 2 different types of personas, and within each there are sub-personas. So we've identified that the C-suite is the decision maker. We identified our 3 key sectors that we see the biggest opportunity. Our sweet spot is professional services, it's finance, and it's retail. But we identified also that whilst C-suite is the decision maker, we don't always engage with them first. We often find that actually it's difficult to do so. And actually, we're going to focus this campaign potentially on the influencer personas. So IT managers or IT directors might be more applicable and might be easier for us to get in front of. They are the ones who are actively researching and looking at options and looking to make sure that their business stays ahead of the curve. Or depending on the product, it might be their counterpart in operations as well. Obviously, a lot of this is dependent on company size, industry, but these are the personas that we've identified that actually we typically engage in. Our persona work relates to these. So what it is that we're going to do, we're going to create a data-led report that speaks to IT decision makers and influencers to find out what their opportunities and priorities are for the next 12 months. Analysing this data will help us understand where our campaign focus is It will help us to understand changes in the landscape. So are the challenges that we think our personas care about, are they still valid? It will also help to position us as understanding the needs of these specific audience as well. We're going to focus largely on the IT side of things. So industries are those that we've already listed and the personas are, but we're not going to focus on ops. We're going to focus on IT specifically within this report. Once we've done it, we're going to hope to secure some press coverage. So we're going to do some PR assets. So a press release, we'll do some canned commentary based on the questions, so that whenever we're pitching to journalists, we're going to make sure that we're on target. We're going to leverage our existing relationships, if we've got some, if you're working with an agency, whoever, to amplify and secure good quality press coverage. So that could be local media, it could be regional media, or if we're focusing on retail, for example, we could be going after the likes of Retail Week as kind of key high quality press publications. We'll then be able to use the report findings to secure speaking opportunities at a Retail Week or a Retail Gazette conference. There's lots of different things we can do once we've got the data. There's lots of things we can do with it, and journalists are always really keen to have data that tells a story. From our own website point of view, so from an owned media side of things, and we covered the PESO model in the last slide deck in session 2. We're going to do some keyword research. We're going to review what competitors are doing. We're going to make some optimizations to our existing website. We're going to create a Microsoft 365 for Business page, which focuses on the benefits of the solution. Of course, we've only got a Microsoft page at the moment, and on that Microsoft page, there might be a tiny little section on 365, but there's nothing really detailed. We're not doing the education piece. We're not showing our credibility and our referenceability. And then within that, we're going to create 3 additional content pieces as well. So 1 blog on why you need to use Microsoft 365, 1 use case on how it's changed someone's business, and then a case study, which is very security focused, which could be one of our customers that we've been working with recently, who hopefully will be able to give a really solid case study quote, or to video ideally would be great. Then we're going to create an additional blog series to get through this, and there's just 3 examples of headlines there of what that blog might be called. So it might be tackling IT growing pains in the pursuit of growth, so how we can overcome the issues of remote working and how we can mitigate risk whilst managing cost. Blog post 2 could be around empowering employees to do their best work whilst working remotely. And we then have got 2 key sections there around how we build a business based on trust and the tech your team needs to do that. Obviously, we would then start to weave in Microsoft 365 for Business messaging within that post. And then lastly, we've got back to basics, how to rethink your IT strategy. So how to make sure that digital transformation methods that you need to adopt are included, and make it sound like it's really, really easy if you have the right partner. And ideally, we would look to weave in client quotes. If we've got a skyscraper within our business, and we refer to skyscraper as somebody who's an expert in a specific area, a specific theme. So it could be we've got a industry expert on digital transformation. We've got this person specifically to maybe list the process. We put a quote in there, you might put a picture, you might put a LinkedIn profile link, just to bring home that credibility and referenceability. And then we'd look to the last section there around how we can drive value through premium Microsoft 365 for Business licensing. We have listed a basic user journey mapping. So we start with a yellow box. Somebody sees an ad, they either make or don't make an action. So they either click through to our website or they don't. If they click through, they're going to visit a landing page. If they complete the form, great, we remove them from our ads audience. If they don't, they go into a retargeting. But if they've never clicked the original ad, we just keep serving them a multitude of ads. So we would look to have maybe 2, 3, 4 variants, each with different pain points, each with different challenges, and we test different call to actions as well. So this might just be landing page 1. There might be 4 landing pages that we have that we're sending people to. One could be book a demo, which is where the form comes from. One could be view or read blog. One could be read case study. One could be download checklist. We've got multiple opportunities there to engage people within our audience, to capture details, to then be able to automate that nurture flow. From a social media point of view, we're going to do some hashtag research and understand the best opportunities. We're going to create a 90-day social calendar where we're looking to post twice a week. We've got some examples of there about what those posts might be. So very, very top level awareness of Microsoft 365, the benefits it has, any success studies or case studies that we've got that we're able to share on our website, and any return on investment stats as well. We would always want to link everything that we're doing on a social point of view back to a landing page, back to a lead gen form opportunity if we can, just so we can start to find ways to capture data. If we don't have data, it then becomes very difficult to put more and more people in the top of the funnel to nurture them through. But that refinement and that experimentation at each stage is where we would look to optimize that process. We will look to create a range of video content and imagery. So can we get our skyscraper in front of the camera just to do a 20-30 second video? We don't want them necessarily to be speaking into the camera for 30 minutes. We just want it to be really short, snappy. We know that from the research we've done, the work we've done with a lot of these personas, IT decision makers are busy. They haven't necessarily got time to sit there and watch a 15-minute video. They just want the short, concise bits of information that they need in order to make a decision. We might do some video case studies to get a client who we've worked with in front of a camera, or we might simply just do an infographic of the benefits of 365, and that might be a like-for-like comparison with Google Workspace, or it could be just purely the benefits of it as a standalone solution. We could test various different things there. We are going to just add activity. So we're going to do LinkedIn feed ads and LinkedIn messaging ads at our audience. We've got some location specific demographics there as well. So we're targeting IT people within the specific area. So we've got the Greater London perimeter there. You'll notice the difference between page one and bullet point one and bullet point two. We're only focusing on IT managers in the top one because we want to create awareness. We want to build the trust. We want them to start speaking to their line managers, to their exec team around us and what they've seen, and they might then share the article. We're going to focus the free trial offer. So we're offering a Microsoft 365 for Business Premium free trial. We're focusing that on the decision makers, and the messages for the two audiences there will probably be very different. For the IT managers, it might be benefits of using it. For the more senior members, it might be cost savings you can make. It might be how to unlock productivity. Bearing in mind our persona work, we need to make sure that what we're saying ticks the boxes for those audiences, and they will each have different motivators. We're going to do some Google and Microsoft ads as well. So focusing on specific URLs, specific search terms. With the Microsoft ads, we can be a bit more targeted. So we're focusing on people working in IT in a 50-mile radius, just to see what engagement that has. And we would look to experiment along the way. We're going to do some email nurturing. So we're going to have our automation set up, but we're also going to send these 3 emails out here, which could be to a net new contact base. It could be contacts that we've already got that we want to try and re-engage. We might buy data, those sort of things. So email 1 is to engage existing prospects. Email 2 is to engage people who are already on a more basic package. And then email 3 is to completely prospect data. We might then elevate that with some automation. So people who come through some of our lead capture, so it could be joining the mailing database, it could be downloading the ebook. We've got a 12 email workflow here where we're going to try and hit people with messaging at the various different stages. So you can see line 1 is the awareness stage, line 2 consideration, and line 3 decision. We've mapped out a workflow that takes them up to 56 days there. We would hope that we'd be able to convert people sooner, and we would look to, within each of these emails, have various different call to action banners. So email 1 might be thanks for downloading our ebook. We might have a blurb to say, here's a summary of what's included. click here if you lose your link, click here to download it again. Then at the very bottom, there's a, would you like to book a demo? Would you like to book a free trial as a secondary banner? Because we do know some people, out of intrigue, might just be willing to convert sooner, and we don't want to miss that opportunity, and we don't want to delay the sales cycle in that way as well. So in terms of the messaging we're going to use, we've split it out here in terms of 2 personas. So there are multiple personas that we might use throughout this campaign activity. We just purely chosen 2 and chosen some of the challenges that we know or that we assume these people face. So IT manager, we focus here on security and unauthorized access, so very security focused. And we've listed there how the solution can help. We've gone for much more of a C-suite, so the CEO, a lot more of a focus on business productivity, bottom line, what is it going to cost? How can we show that actually there's a cost benefit here, whether that's because we boost productivity, we need less workers because we can do things more streamlined, and just focus on whatever our persona work has told us. So in terms of what we're going to measure, obviously measurement is so important, as we alluded to up front. This is just an example of some of the metrics that we might use within our dashboard. We would always suggest setting up a dashboard if we can. This one here is made up from Google Data Studio, now Looker Studio, just so we can give business leaders the information that they want in a way that resonates with them. As you can see from those graphs, we've done lots of various different ads from there. We've hit nearly 130,000 impressions, 478 clicks, and we've got 18 leads off the back of it. You can see that the first lead comes in about the 15th of May, so after about 2 weeks, which is quite standard within a campaign. The first week or 2 is really your initial experimentation, where you are testing a lot of hypothesis, a lot of assumptions based on, we think this is the pain point that's going to relate, we think these challenges are relevant, we think the content's right. As we get through that process, we can fine-tune messaging, fine-tune ad variants, and really drive that conversion rate. Excuse me. We've listed out just some of the metrics as well that we would look to report on. So this is obviously just one slide or one page within this deck. We would look to report on web, how many visits we've had, where they've come from, how many leads have been created, and what the source was. So are they web leads that have come through organic search? Are they through paid activity? Is it through email? And so on. From a paid social point of view, we would look to do impressions, clicks, and click-through. There's email impressions there around opens, clicks, and actually unsubscribes. We want to make sure that our messaging and our content doesn't feel spammy, and that's why it's really important to monitor the unsubscribes and the unsubscribe rate in terms of how we optimize, especially if it's an automated journey. If we potentially paid to acquire a mailing list sign up or ebook download, we want to make sure that we can get a return on that at some point. And if somebody unsubscribes, obviously we've then lost that opportunity. So that is so important that we can keep that as low as possible. Organic social, impressions, engagements, and clicks. And then very similar for PPC, we want to look at how many people have seen our ads. If we've had 130,000 impressions and no clicks, something's wrong with our ad there. We need to change the messaging, and we need to create something that's a bit more relevant. Obviously, each of those would then lead into the web. So you're looking at a web level at leads and leads by source. We would then be able to, through the lead by source attribution, understand if email drove the best leads. Off the back of reporting as well, we would hope to generate some insights, which could say, for the IT manager audience or for the CEO audience, pain point 1, cost was the most engaging, but actually pain point 2, risk to data, risk to application stability, was the one that drove the lead. So whilst, yeah, cost is a factor and got the most engagement, actually those who were wanting to start to have a sales conversation with us or join our mailing list or download an ebook were much more focused on security. So we can start to understand what then becomes primary message and secondary message, and then we can then test that as an initial hypothesis next time we go through. So that is the end of the first part of the presentation. Obviously, we're then going to go into creating a brand and demand, very shortly in a sec, once I've had a little sip of water. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask at this point, or as I said earlier, at the front of this session, we will share contact information on the very end slide, which will probably take about 15-20 minutes to get to, where you can contact Sabs or I or the Microsoft CSP team at TD Synex, who are more than happy to answer any questions that you've got. Okay, so we'll just go into this session here. So just the background to this set of slides is, as Active Profile, we are a integrated marketing and PR agency. We find that a lot of customers have a challenge between what is most important and what should they focus on. Should they focus on brand awareness, which maybe is a much more longer term play, or should they focus on demand, which drives short term results, but the minute you stop that demand generation, the leads stop because you're not tackling both. So we delivered this training session, our CEO delivered this training session at the Manchester Tech Festival to an audience of tech startups, a couple of channel partners, but not many. It was very much focused on the ISV audience, really. But a lot of the challenges and a lot of the things we cover in here are very applicable, irrespective of what sector you work in, what you're trying to sell. These are typical business challenges, so we thought it was just relevant to include in this session today. So we're going to cover the challenges around brand and demand, and then we're going to cover some ways that both of them can go in action. We've got some real Active Profile case studies as well. So some of the existing and previous clients that we've worked with and how we've worked with them to hit both brand and demand, just to try and give you some ideas and inspiration on what you could maybe do yourself. So we're just going to start off with a couple of top level stats. So what came out of the Forbes Insight survey from a couple of years ago was just over 2/3 of business leaders think their company wastes money on marketing. And when we did session one, I think there was a general consensus that this stat felt right. Obviously, this then suggests that less than 1 in 3 CEOs in the UK globally thinks their company does marketing well. And that's an issue. And I think what we've discussed in the last couple of these sessions is it's not necessarily that companies are wasting money on marketing. It's that companies are just really struggling to prove an ROI because tracking isn't set up right. Teams don't know how to report, don't know how to give C-suite the information and the insights that they need. So marketers really need to focus on how they can prove that ROI in a world that's becoming much more ROI driven, as we've certainly seen over the last couple of years. Another stat here then, which suggests that only 9% of marketers focus on long-term programs. So what this is saying is 91% of people are very much focused in the here and now. I need to generate leads now. I'm not interested in the brand awareness that might kick in 6 months, 12 months time. I am focused on, I need leads now. If I'm going to grow my business, I've got a finite resource in terms of people or time or money. I'm going to focus on generating leads. I'm not going to focus on how we start to bring things through more organically and how we build our brand presence so that we don't then need to spend so much on a paid acquisition point of view. So I'm just interested to see if people agree. Feel free to follow up afterwards if you do or don't. Really interested in continuing the conversation. And then in prep of Manchester Tech Festival, we did our own pulse survey where we asked marketers which discipline they're going to focus on most over the next 12 months. And surprisingly, it was very, very similar. Obviously, these are rounded up figures. So 35 obviously would be a little bit less, 34.6 or something like that. But we were really surprised that actually people are starting to understand the benefit of spending more on brand awareness, but actually the demand element is not going away. People know they need to do short-term demand, but people are starting to understand that actually for consistency and to scale properly, I need to focus on both. And we are seeing more and more people are turning to PR and thought leadership, and more people are focusing on media relations because they see that as a real opportunity to create awareness in their chosen sectors. So how does this show up in channel businesses today? And we've just got some challenges and pain points, which I think will largely be very familiar to the audience that are on this call, on this webinar, and will be watching this on demand as well. Do you have challenges with lead generation? Do you have challenges with brand awareness? Do you have challenge with internal sales and marketing alignment? Do you see leads differently? Do you class a good lead if you're in sales, then it's a bad lead in marketing, or vice versa? That alignment is so important. Do you have an issue with talent? And we know most people, irrespective of sector, company size, location, do at the moment. Do you have a problem gaining referenceability? And we've got an example in this, in the next couple of slides, around how we can do use case studies, so where we don't necessarily have the opportunity to reference specific clients, but we've done a specific piece of work where we can use that to drive that credibility and referenceability point. Do you have an issue proving ROI? We know marketers and businesses struggle with it. And then, is budget an issue? We need to think more long term, whilst obviously still driving short term growth, because the short term growth funds the long term brand build. And it is a constant balancing act. We know that. And we know that that is an issue within channel businesses as well. It's a challenge from thinking from between longer term and shorter term, and vice versa, from brand to demand and back. Thinking national or international, or should we be really local and targeted? I think obviously the pandemic flipped everything on its head in that you suddenly had access to clients overseas, clients in the north if you're a London-based partner. It created a lot of opportunity. So it's about understanding where's the best place for us to focus. Should we be more targeted, or could we go the breadth of the UK? What's more important, and where should we focus? Should we focus on brand awareness, or should we focus on action? Action would be sign-ups, lead generation. Are we being much more aggressive in our message? And is our call to action read this blog, download this checklist, or is it book a discovery, book a demo, book a free trial? Are we focusing on perception, or are we focusing on profit? So are we focusing on creating a brand which appears sustainable, which has really good, similar to kind of like B Corp credentials? Are we focusing time and effort there, or are we focusing on bottom line and profit on that demand generation? We know a lot of businesses have issues with all of these things, and they do all go hand in hand. So how can we start to pick off some of these issues and deal with some of these things in isolation, and turn brand awareness into demand, and get into a position where we can do both? So we've got three use cases, 3 case studies that will come off the back of this session. The first one is around events. So Peak is a tech business that we worked with a couple of years ago. They're one of the North's success stories when it comes to SaaS-based solutions. So they're a real ISV success story. We worked with them before they really had any profile, had any brand awareness, had any referenceability. What we did is we went to this Wired Smarter event, and we created an integrated campaign around this, which was heavily digital, heavily in person, had actions pre, during, and post. But we wanted to use this to create a blueprint with them that they could then use to scale business, scale marketing efforts, because we knew once we created a blueprint that was refined and optimized, that it was scalable. Their blueprint would enable them to do the same thing every year and build upon their learnings, which they have done. And we're really proud that they're still rolling this blueprint out today. So what we did was we helped them launch into retail. This is their CEO on stage at Wired Smarter event doing a speech. At the end of the speech, he tells everybody in the audience that he's got a bespoke report for each of them, which has data specific to their business. They then flock to the stand afterwards. We then capture detail. People can then download a copy of their report, get sent to their email, and we can then use that data to nurture them. So we were able to identify and generate really big opportunities here from the likes, within the audience at this event. There was the ASOS's, the JD's, the Next, the River Islands. It was a major retail audience, and it was really important for us to get in front of them. So we invested lots of time, effort into creating bespoke landing pages. Everyone had a bespoke report, but the beauty of it was everything was really scalable. We didn't create 20, 30 reports from scratch. We created one report. We then weaved in brand logos. We then weaved in one page of really bespoke data. but actually 80-90% of that piece of content was the same. We made it so that was really, really scalable, but really focused and personalized. The 80% was relevant to the audience because we'd done the persona work. So we knew challenges were right, pain points were right, and we knew the messaging was right. What people were interested in terms of getting them further down the funnel was, what does it tell me about my business? And that data told a really good story. Similarly, the landing page was the same, just swap the logo out, swap the brand name, so it felt really personalized. We've then worked with another client more recently than that to just do some really short sprint experiments. So we worked with a company called Live and Lens, who are Liverpool-based video intelligence system. They can take video feedback and analyze sentiment. So I might say, I loved working with X, but it will analyze the sentiment in that. I said I loved working with you, but I didn't sound very positive about it. So it takes what you said as positive, but then analyzes and gives a percentage on the actual tone and the delivery of that. So we work with them pre-Live and Lens, and we didn't have, obviously you can see the Del Taco case study here on the left, who are a real big customer of theirs. Before they were acquired and when they first started out, they didn't have any of these big brand name case studies. They had a couple of good companies that they worked with, but they didn't have permission to use brand names or logos. So we created a series of company in X industry did this, focused on the challenge, focused on the opportunity, focused on what we did, and focused on the results. And we were able to then use that within the campaign, and we could prove credibility, we could prove referenceability. It wasn't as strong as saying we've worked with Del Taco. Del Taco's challenge was this, and this is what we did to help Del Taco. But it started to scratch the surface for us, and it started to open a couple of doors because people could relate to the challenge, and we were then positioning ourselves as understanding that audience. We also work with them on a content point of view. So we created small, really easy to digestible and really scalable content. So this example here, the video setup checklist, was part of a bigger piece of content, but then this was a standalone piece of content as well. We just created, in an industry where none of this content existed, some really useful pieces of content. Ultimately, this was at a time when COVID had just hit. People were so used to doing things in person. People who were working in data and insights were no longer able to do things in person, so they needed to help understanding what to do, how to set things up, if they're providing video feedback, just pure things around how to make sure that they make the most of the camera. So not working bright colors, not doing anything that's too busy, using a blank wall, not using a busy background, and just be prepared to take time, watch the video back, re-record it. This was information that people working in customer experience and insights were really interested in, because no one quite knew how to then do video research in a typically traditional rather sector. So how we got people to download these sort of things, this was the ebook that it sat within. So this guide, we didn't create anything too complicated. We created things that were really scalable. This is a very, very basic landing page. We did this as an experiment. The final version of this page, or certainly the B test within this, was much longer, but we just launched something that was really quick, really scalable, and would enable us to just test if the content was right, test if we were giving people enough information. So over our experiments, we would look at the title of the report, we would look at what these bullet points said within it. We looked at really refining and reducing the information we were gathering, because we knew that this was a hero piece of content. It wasn't a demo. We didn't need someone's phone number. We just kept it very, very basic. But what this form does do is it only accepts work addresses. So if you put your Gmail or your Outlook email into email, it wouldn't allow you to download it. So we were able to make sure that we were capturing business information, and we only sent a copy to somebody who put in their work address. So the copy went via email. It wasn't a PDF that opens automatically. So we were able to understand and start to get some really good traction through this and the use case studies all coming together as part of an integrated strategy. And then here's just an overview of some of the results and some of the social engagement that came off the back of it. So we were able to build data subsets. We were able to take a much more data-driven approach by being really, really persona-led. We increased web traffic. We generated some really good leads to some really, really good target companies. Google, Johnson & Johnson were I think they were in the top 100 or maybe in the top 50 wish list in terms of ideal customers. We increased lead gen conversion rates, and because of the content we were providing was educational, not selling, we got some really good industry people to post about it without even asking them to, because they saw the benefits of sharing it, which then helped us to leverage within our own campaign as well. And then the last case study within the section is just about how we can drive pipeline, because we get demand is so important to us in a saturated market. Thinking back to 64,000 Microsoft partners, how do we become the ones that are front of mind, and how we position ourselves in that way? So we worked fairly recently with a client who's really vocal on LinkedIn, posted a LinkedIn post around the Net Promoter Score survey, the NPS approach, and how he didn't agree with it, because he was quite well connected in the industry, purely in terms of LinkedIn contacts, not necessarily on a one-to-one relationship basis. We managed to get about 70 or more comments, a mixture for, a mixture against. So we thought about how we could turn this into a campaign. So we created this idea of how we could keep the conversation going, how we could keep the engagement up, and then create a lot of contact information that we could then nurture through. So we did a webinar format. So we invited someone to speak for and against, and we gave people opportunity to ask questions, because we knew that no one else was facilitating that conversation. So we spotted a gap in the marketing mix, in the market, essentially, to enable to facilitate that. So we're hoping that we'll get a good number of people onto that session, which is happening over the next couple of weeks. We then looked at how we could take people who are quiet, so people who we've previously nurtured, who maybe had initial conversations, but then they've gone quiet. How can we re-engage them in a way that isn't salesy, because the sales process has put them off, whether it's because of budgets or timing, or the messaging wasn't right. How we could bring them back to a way that would then convert them. So we pulled together an idea to do a roundtable where we would leverage one of our board advisors who's really influential in the industry. So relying on and leaning on expertise and skills and knowledge and skill set, bringing somebody in who was part of our business, but would also be seen as a bit of an independent, someone that people would want to come and see, would want to have FaceTime with, and would want to engage with. We're then in a position now where we're hosting this roundtable where we'll invite retail, head of marketing, head of brands, head of sales, that sort of persona, to come and have a conversation in a really intimate manner. So we're talking like 12 to 16 people, and we'll talk about state of play, we'll talk about challenges, and then we'll be able to give insights as well. And at that point, we'll be then looking to just do very, very basic product demos, show them how we are well positioned to help them solve any of those issues, and then show how actually spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on the NPS and the Net Promoter Score just isn't the best way to run your business and to run the data insights within your business as well. And then lastly, we focused part of our proposal with these people on how we could close people who are on the hook. So people who we've done a proposal for, we've done a demo for, they tell us they're interested, but they're not quite ready to convert, or maybe they haven't even got to that stage yet. So we looked at, we're so close to putting these people over the line, how can we help, and how can we test different ways to do so, and whether that's different content, how can we use online and offline. So for each of these people, we've created, or we will at least in the plan, we've said we'll create a bespoke landing page. Each will have a call to action relevant to where they are in the process. So some might be, book a demo, we've got an updated platform, we've done some product advancements, come and have a look at how good they are and if they could help. Some will have a direct mail pack sent out in the post, where we'll have a copy of a book that one of our clients has authored, which is really well known within the industry, and it will hopefully educate people a lot in that way. And we're hoping that by being a bit more personal and a bit more personalized, because these opportunities are a high value for us. We're hoping that by putting this time and effort in, by creating a bit more of a bespoke campaign and testing if it works or not, we'll be able to get some of these people off over the line. Ultimately, we want to get people away from relying on existing networks and relying on existing contacts. We need people to think about, existing contacts will be great at closing short-term demand, but actually if we're thinking bigger picture, we need to give people a good experience so that they feel empowered to refer us into a friend, have a conversation about us about, I've just seen this really good piece of tech, I didn't know it existed, have you even heard of it? And then hopefully that person will then come and have a chat to us as well. So to close this part of the session, we've got 3 key takeaways. One, around when it comes to events, don't just turn up, make sure that you have a plan around it. So if you're going to an exhibition or you're going to a networking event, make sure that you don't just turn up, pull a royal banner up and expect people to come to you. Think about what you're going to do before, during and after. So it could be as little as, we're going to be exhibiting at this event. When you get there, we're here, we're on stand E22, come and speak to us. What are we doing at that event? Promote the call to action. It could be, come and take part in our prize draw. We're running a competition, we've got this game, come and see the latest tech. Microsoft are here with us, come and have a chat. And then afterwards, what are we doing to follow up? We would always recommend to clients going to any event, especially if you're sponsoring or exhibiting, can you get access to the list of attendees or even company names? Identify 2 or 3 that you want to try and get in front of and you want to try and have a conversation with, and then track them down on the day and try and just make that communication and get that business card or arrange a follow-up, arrange a coffee, and whatever you can get off the back of that. It's important that you go to an event with a strategy. It doesn't need to be really long-winded. When it comes to experimenting, we recommend we start as close to the bottom as you need to. So bottom of the funnel is closest to the sale. So if you've got a real issue with closing, you get loads of people coming to a webinar, you get loads of people downloading an ebook, you get loads of mailing list signups, but you can't close them. There's an issue somewhere. So experiment with that. Experiment with the proposals you send, experiment with the demo experience, experiment with the content that you serve at the bottom. Do you go completely quiet between someone requesting, someone doing the demo and proposal? How do you continue to engage in that way? If that stage of the funnel's fine, you're not having issues with it, just go the next level up. Is there an issue getting people from webinar to proposal, but once they get to proposal, they all close? What can we do to refine that process? Is the webinar format wrong? Do we need to do something in person? Do we need to make the process a bit more personalized? Just think about how you can do very, very basic experiments, because the smallest thing sometimes is the difference between no engagement and great engagement. And obviously, if we can get great engagement, we're much more likely to get a sale. And then we've mentioned just loosely there before these key takeaways around, we need to move from relying on existing black books, so existing contacts and existing networks. We need to focus on bringing more people into that funnel, and that's where that awareness piece is so important. So get the most out of our black books, but also don't focus on that purely. Whilst we're doing that, we should have something on in the background to drive additional people to us. So thank you for listening. I'll pass you back to Sabs just to do a very last close, and then we'll let you get on with your Mondays. So thank you for listening.
Perfect. Thank you, Nathan. So yeah, I was just wanting to let you know something that I'm working on, which will be ready very soon. So for any of you that do earn Microsoft Co-op, it obviously can be complicated sometimes to understand the whole process, because obviously it's money that's kept back at Microsoft. You therefore then have to do the activity within the right timelines, generate the right evidence, and then you claim back that money again within the right timeline. So putting together a guide that really explains how that all works, when you have to do it, giving you guidance on what proof of execution you need. So I've actually created like checklists. So if you were doing, say, a call out day for your sales teams, or a live event or like a webinar or anything, it kind of goes through the different areas, so you can make sure that you're ticking all of those bits off, and then you shouldn't have a problem when it obviously comes to claiming. If you don't earn co-op and obviously just get a rebate, you can still obviously utilise some of these marketing activities through that rebate funding that you get. You just wouldn't have to worry about all of the POE and admin that goes with claiming. So yeah, it was just really a heads up to let you know that this book is coming, and as soon as it is, I will make sure that you all get a copy. So outside of that, Nathan mentioned obviously contact details. So you obviously have access to either myself or Nathan. So if you do have any questions about anything that you've heard on today's session or any of the other sessions, obviously do reach out to us. Any general queries, obviously you've always got the CSP team as well, csp.uk@tdsynex.com. So hopefully you found that useful. And if there's anything that you feel is missing, we will be booking obviously those one-to-one sessions with you all to go through the Cloud Practice Builder tracks as a whole.